Hey there, it's Ravit and Marie from the Nasty Divorce Podcast. Just to remind you, we are not lawyers, we are not therapists, we are two divorced parents on an adventure to demystify nasty divorces, understand why nasty divorces are becoming an epidemic, problems we see in today's divorces, and try to find solutions. And today we have with us a problem solver, Audrey Greenberg. She is a change management specialist. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in education, and over a dozen specialized certifications and all sorts of things related to change management, leadership, and some corporate stuff. This is our third part series where we're talking about changes in grandparents. This is a topic that is not often discussed, and I felt the need to expose this and really start up the conversation because many of us don't realize why our relationship with our parents tends to suffer, dissolve, be conflictual, whatever it may be. And one of the main reasons is because just as much as you as the parent are suffering throughout your divorce, your parents, the grandparents, are suffering just as much, if not harder. I mean, it's not, we don't even need to compare. But the point is that their lives have changed completely. What the status quo that they knew is no longer there. They're older, they're more fragile, they're more sensitive, and their biggest concern is the little kids and what's going to happen to the kids. So, from my experiences and from my clients and just the people that I know, one of the biggest conversations that we have is my parents are driving me crazy. So, what does someone do in that respect? And I say, well, you have to take a look and figure out if your parents are driving you crazy because they are crazy, or because they're just going through change and they don't know how to handle it just as much as you don't. So Audrey, what do you think are the biggest changes with grandparents when it comes to divorcing?
There are a lot of changes, and they're going through sometimes similar changes to what each of the parents are going through. So to begin with, you're absolutely right. The child, the mother or the father, has to step back and say, you know what, they've been affected too. They're experiencing a huge change, a huge loss. They've lost, and they're going through those emotions of those changes. They are going through the denial, like, no, you don't have to get divorced. Don't be ridiculous. You don't have to be doing that. They're going through the anger. How dare they do that to my child?
Yeah.
They're going through the bargaining. Well, okay, well, what if I help out in this way? Then it'll make your marriage easier. You don't have to go through the divorce. They're going through a depression. It takes a lot to get to acceptance, and why? They're the matriarch, the patriarch of the family, right? They lead by example. They're role models. I got this. I've been there. I have the experience. You come to me for advice, and what happens if they've never been divorced? They have no idea what
They're
to say.
lost
They've
and
never been there
confused.
before.
Yes.
So their role, their sense of identity has just changed. What is my role now? You can't come to me and cry on my shoulder and say, oh, well, no problem. I've been through this before. This is what you got to do and whatever. It's new territory, and
Yeah.
new is change. It's scary. There's fear in that. Other things that are going on with the grandparents, when the separation, the divorce first happens, there's a lot of their children coming back to live with them. And so what's just happened, right? They need temporary housing.
True.
So what happens? They've just lost some of their freedom. They've lost some of their space in their home. Their routines have completely changed. So that's going on. Sometimes divorces can be unnecessarily expensive. Child rearing is expensive. So what happens? They have to go into their savings, their retirement money. Sometimes they have to come out of retirement and go through a change of finding a job to help support their kids. Sometimes they're stepping into the role of co-parent, and that's different. So now they're parenting their grandkids because they're doing a lot more babysitting. Their free time has been used up. Now they're babysitting, and where's the line? If I'm spending all this time with my grandkids right now, and I'm stepping up to help my son with the parenting because he's at work and things like that, and he comes home, and I'm still saying, okay, little Johnny, go do your homework, and he's like, whoa, I'm the dad, I'll tell him when to do the homework. Well, when
Boundaries.
are you supposed to? Where's the boundary?
Yeah.
When am I the parent? When am I the grandparent? Where they're confused. How much do I get involved in their dating life after and not? Do I say something? Do I not say something?
Whoa, what?
That's a little much.
It's hard.
How would,
Yeah.
well, before you move on, why would the grandparent have anything to say about dating?
Maybe they feel it's too early or they're dating the wrong person.
Look, it
It's been known.
depends on where you are in your divorce.
Yeah.
In divorce, like, oh my God, I don't want my child to be alone. I'm right into matchmaker.
Yeah.
I don't think you were brought up to believe, generationally, you were brought up to believe you have to get married. That it takes two to go. They can't go at it alone. They need a partner. It's that's how society looked at it. It wasn't even about love for a while. It was just arranged marriages and stuff. So
Maybe it's also about rebounding. If you're rebounding and your parent sees that, like the grandparent sees that and sees that it's not healthy because it's distracting you from your everyday life and taking care of the kids. And hey, you know what? Instead of actually taking care of your kids, you're dumping them on me and you're going out there dating and I don't know what you're doing out there. But I'm not the parent. You're supposed to be here more than I am.
Yeah,
So there could be a role reversal.
Role reversal and judgment, because maybe you're out there dating because you're trying to find yourself, your identity, and raise your self-esteem again.
Yes, there's a lot of
You
reasons.
need that time.
And grandma and grandpa, may I suggest,
Yes.
has got to realize that that's a 40-ish or 30-ish year old person, your son or daughter.
Yeah.
And they make their own decisions for the past 10 years, let's say, in their marriage. You can't assume that they need your guidance. You've done your best. Now, just take care of the grandkids, I think is your role. Be a sounding board, yeah. But offering dating advice? Man.
I don't know if advice or more concerns. Like they're discussing the concerns. Like what if I was your daughter, Marie, and I kept telling you, like, every second I die, you got to take care of the kids tonight. You have to come over, put them to bed, give them showers, make dinner, do the whole thing, and pack up their school bags for tomorrow because I'm going on a date every second night. Wouldn't at some point you say, hey, hold on a second? Yeah, exactly.
Because I got my own, but I've got my own time, I've got my own life, and maybe you want to hire a babysitter if you're going to be out there.
Exactly. So that's where there's a lot of changes in, the grandparents' lives and as the parent is struggling to survive day by day and trying to figure out what they're doing from today to tomorrow, the grandparent is sort of like in that ride with them, has been forced onto that roller coaster and they're going upside down and inside out and they're ready to, their head is spinning because they don't know how to deal with it. Parents don't know how.
A lot of their involvement in the grandparents' lives, a lot of that is not, there is no law that says a grandparent has rights. So a lot of it depends on the grace of the divorcing couple.
That's true.
As to whether or not there's going to be any involvement. And if there hasn't been a great relationship in the past, well, guess what? It's going to be a lot worse now.
Exactly, and that's one of their biggest fears, right? So they try to stay involved as much as they can. They try to hold the fort as much as they can.
You bring up an excellent point is the loss of access to their grandchildren.
Yeah.
So they may have gotten used to seeing them, at holidays and this and that,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it has, the time has to be shared. So they're at the other people's house for the holidays, and they're not coming to your house for the holidays this year, so you see them less. Am I allowed to call the other house to speak to my grandkids? If they're, like you said, if the relationship wasn't great with their son-in-law, their daughter-in-law, they're not going to feel comfortable to say, hey, I want to speak to my grandkid. That person's not going to be nourishing that relationship and say, hey, have you called your grandmother in a while? Like,
Sure. Yeah.
That's not going to be happening. And then if, think about it, in divorce, ideally it's 50-50 with the kids. That means you yourself are only seeing your kids 6 months out of the year, not 12.
Yeah.
And are you then taking that time, that precious time that you have with your kids, and now saying, okay, let's spend some of that time with your grandparents?
I think
you gotta
that's,
share that too.
Sure you do.
Yeah.
And I think in the end, exposure to grandma and grandpa is not a bad thing. So if you can put your selfishness aside, that's kind of a little pejorative on my part, but if it's all for the betterment of the child,
Yes.
then you can give up your time. And she can give up her time. Because the bottom line is the child has to be considered number one here. And the impact of this divorce on them has to be, you have to look at that and say, okay, this is all for the good of the child. Yes, I'm pissed off at her or him. I'm pissed off at the grandparents and all that stuff. But really, I'm after a better, well-developed child.
Yeah.
I want a good child to enter the adult workforce, the adult world, and I want that person to be a good person. So if you can put aside your own self and realize that the child comes first, then I think it will be easier.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It provides some, in healthy relationships, it provides some stability to the kids that, what hasn't changed is grandma and grandpa are the same.
Yes.
And I can rely on having the same meal when I go over there. They're going to ask me the same kinds of, questions and things like that. So that does provide some stability in their life that's, changing what's going on.
Sure.
They're also going through a loss. They're grieving a loss. So they're grieving the loss for you. They're feeling empathy and compassion. But they might have been, they loved your spouse, hopefully. They loved your spouse. And so now that relationship is broken to them.
Yes.
They're not seeing them anymore all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And that's a sudden loss. That's not a gradual, let me say goodbye, let me thank you for things, okay, I'll see you at the next birthday party. That might not be happening. And so they haven't had a proper separation.
I think that's a very important key because one of the main reasons that a divorce can become acrimonious is because the grandparents get involved. They stick their nose where it ain't belonging.
Yep.
And basically, they either feed them the money to go out and fight, and screw over the other parent, or they start with a bad mouthing. And they start with the stories. And they find all the negative, worst things that this person had in the last 10, 15 years, or however long it was. And basically, they're egging on their child to make it worse. Now, there could be two parts to that. One could be that they're so angry and frustrated and they don't know how to deal with it. And so they're venting, but they're venting to the wrong person because they don't realize that it'll just make their child boil. Or number two is they're out for a war. And if they're out for a war, ladies and gentlemen out there, you are screwed, completely screwed, because there's nothing you can do. If they have it in their heads to go out and screw you over and spend a whole load of more money than you have, there's nothing that you can do. You got to play it out.
Because grandma and grandpa are thinking, oh, you finally dumped that loser? Good. Now, here's some money, and I hope it goes well for you.
Yeah. Or I can't believe that the other parent dumped you, and I ruined our reputation because our reputation is that we don't have divorces in our family, and suddenly you're the first to blow everything up, and we're embarrassed, and we feel very insecure, so we're going to screw you over just the way we think we should. So that's it. So, there's that part of it. So if your divorce starts off like that, so you really have to be careful not to try to get there. It's so ridiculous that you have to think about this, but you actually have to think about how, you divorce and how you and how you even start to separate and what you say and, those opening conversations, to sort of keep the forces together and hang on to all sides as best as you can. And I think that it's also important that both sides, both sets of grandparents, should still stay in contact, and they shouldn't be enemies and they shouldn't have any animosity between them. And they should try to really have, as best as they can, a very neutral thought or feeling over the two parents and what's happening, really just for the betterment of the child. And that doesn't happen often enough either. So the grandparents have to go through a grief and loss process. I think that they're highly neglected out there. I think that there is an enormous amount of need for it. I think that they are lost and confused, and although they're talking to each other, every divorce is different. Every one of your children is going to be unique. Every divorce story is going to be completely different from the next, and we don't want you to pick up stories from someone else because of your fear, and instill that fear in your child, which makes that child go up and blow up and then, create the more acrimony. But again, what are the solutions for grandparents? I mean, same as we did for the other, for the dads and for the children, there's got to be a solution. I think, and Audrey, you'll confirm with me if you have any other suggestions, that the grandparents should also have a support group. I think that they should have a support group, but with other grandparents whose children are divorced. Absolutely. Not just go and call everybody and tell your stories and get all the empathy you can get in this world. No, you need concrete ways to deal with the divorce, how to set your boundaries. Don't overstep it. Be careful with this, be careful with that. Keep your distance. Don't let it become your story. What do you think, Audrey?
Absolutely, because, again, what is the end goal? The end goal is for everyone to come out of this feeling good,
Yeah.
happier, and to the betterment of everybody. So yeah, it takes a hit on the family. You know, how other people look at your family, and oh, this has never happened to us before. Your child is feeling like, oh, I failed you, I'm a failure, I didn't make this work, you were able to, and I can't, and so there's something wrong with me, and it brings up like anger. And
Yeah.
you know, if you understand where your child's coming from a little bit more, if you understand what they have to face, if you have support is support, you need to be around people to normalize it. You know, oh, this happened to you too. Okay, it's not the end of the world.
Yes.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Not to feel like you're the only one experiencing these feelings or thoughts or.
Exactly, and to learn what's working, and to share what's not working, and learn different ways. There's a lot of strength in that.
Yes,
For the
absolutely. And on that note, thank you for joining us. We hope that we taught you a little something new or two things. And keep posted, because there are some other shows on changes on mothers, changes on fathers, and changes on children, and they're all really fantastic information of providing. And until the next time, have yourself a day that matters. See you next time.